And this Giants team coming into 2015 certainly has a familiar feel as far as the pitching staff is concerned, a different feel as far as the offensive is concerned. I will give you more of my thoughts after this interview. But initially, you take a look at this team, some of the questions that will come up, and you'll hear about it in the interview you're going to have here in a few minutes with Mr. Michael Saltzman of Baseball Essential and from the Bleachers with Candlestick Will. Some of the things we'll touch on is what else is going to happen in this rotation. Can guys like Tim Hudson and Jake Peavy, as well as Matt Cain and Tim Lincecum, can someone step up and be that number 2 guy? Because that's what they need to have happen this year if they're going to have any success here in 2015. And also, you're going to hear us talk about the offensive changes, the new third baseman in Casey McGee, no more Michael Morse, now replaced by Aoki in right field, or left field rather. So a different feel to this Giants team, but yet still a team that has a lot of pitching. So we are going to talk about it now. And without any further ado, let's welcome in Mr. Michael Saltzman again, who hosts a show here on Blog Talk Radio called From the Bleachers with Candlestick Will. You can hear that every Friday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time. He has that show out there in California. Also does a lot of writing on the Giants on Baseball Essential. Michael, glad to have you on the program.
Hey, great to be on. I really appreciate it. I've listened to the last couple of episodes of your spring training shows, and you do a great job as well. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. And again, of course, the Giants have a lot of headlines this year. They're coming off a World Series championship. They've seen some changes. Obviously, every team sees changes nowadays in free agency. And the expectations, they are probably very high for this team coming into this new campaign. So let's jump right into it. Last year, let's kind of start with last year, the World Series. First of all, this team has now won three World Series in a period of 5 years. It's fair to say that they're now a dynasty, for that matter. Do Giant fans look at it as a dynasty? Do they look at it as, let's say, I guess maybe Yankee fans would look at some of the dynasties they had in the late 90s? How do Giant fans look at this franchise?
Well, I think when you look at it big picture, I think you look at it as a dynasty mostly only because when you look at baseball history, outside of the Yankees, there's very few other times where teams have been like this. The A's won a few in a row, and the Reds won a few in a row. The Cardinals have done it a few times, and you could even say the Red Sox in recent history have, their few titles in not a lot of years. But most teams outside the Yankees never do this. So I think for 3 and 5 years, it's such a short window that you call it a dynasty more because of the lack of dynasties in baseball than anything else. But I think for Giants fans, because of the 50-year, hiatus, 50-plus year hiatus from the last championship to 2010, I think there's no other way to look at it than it's a dynasty because it's certainly the greatest group of Giants teams that most Giants fans have seen in their lifetime, because most Giants fans weren't around for Willie Mays. So, when you look at the current history, there's really no other way to look at it. But I think it's as much because of the success as it is because of the lack of dynasties in the history of the game.
Yeah, very true. I mean, it's very hard to put great teams together. I think it's even more hard nowadays where you have, obviously, free agency, you have players moving around. You have pretty much almost every team now, of course, with the shared revenue, where everyone's pretty much very competitive nowadays, so it's very hard to put that kind of dynasty together. And when you really think about it, really the Red Sox and the Giants consistently, and if you throw the Cardinals in there too, over the last 10 years or so have been the 3 teams who have been so consistent for at least getting to a World Series, let alone winning one.
Right. I mean, even if you look at it, I know the Giants have the wins to back their claim up, but the Cardinals have been more consistent than the Giants have been in recent history with all their NLCS appearances. But they just weren't able to get to the World Series as often. But I think that's you hit it on the head as far as those 3 teams. It's like very few other teams can look at these last 10 or 15 years and really feel like they've had a lot of success. And I think it just goes to how hard it is in baseball, no matter how much money you spend, to be able to win the whole thing. I mean, look at a team like the Detroit Tigers, who've spent in incredible amounts of money, whether it's to keep someone like Verlander or to keep someone like Cabrera, or make big trades for someone like that, or David Price or whoever. And yet with all that money and all those big blockbuster trades, they don't have much to show for it. So, I think it just goes to how hard the game really is.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I got to ask you, because being a fan of the other New York team, not used to a lot of success. So what is that like for someone like you who's a diehard Giants fan out there in the San Francisco area? You cover the team online with the journalism as well as the radio. What's that like to see this and witness championships as often as you have seen them in recent years?
Well, one of the first articles I wrote for Baseball Essential kind of addressed that specifically with this idea that, my expectation my whole life was I just wanted one. So I still feel like 2012 and 2014 wasn't even fair, that, 2010 was all I ever asked for. And the fact that it happened was always just still kind of feels like a dream, like it didn't really happen. So for the fact that these guys, someone like Bumgarner or Buster Posey, that all they know is this kind of success as a Giant, that doesn't even register or make sense to most Giants fans, that anyone could live in this life where all the Giants do is win. I always found it hilarious when people talk about this even year magic, because all 3 years happen to be on even years. But, if you go to any Giants fan who's been a fan for a while, where was that even year magic in 2002 or 2000 or 98 or 96 or every other even year that they've ever been in San Francisco? So I think when Giants fans really assess this current state that we're in, it still kind of feels euphoric and not real. But I think what I would appreciate the most about all of this is that you have such continuity with the team, and that Bumgarner's a part of all three, and that Posey's a part of all three, but so are so many other guys who have multiple rings with this franchise.